So here's my breakfast. It's a little dark over here, so you can't really see it. But I made some. Was gonna do just sunny side up, but guess they're kind of more over easy, I guess you would say. And then of course I got my sausage. They're maple. I'm not gonna show you my coffee because it's sad. It's more cream than anything. Um, yeah, we're in need of some coffee. It'll do for now, I guess. Alright, we're all dressed up and I'm just going to Walmart and the library. But felt like dressing up a little bit. Lost my library card, but I need to take stuff back. So it's going to be a short trip. And I got to find where that thing went to. I know it probably fell behind something. Alright, so Nate is taking this up back to the library. I decided just to sit here on the bench and wait for him. Don't really see the use in going all the way over there. And I can't check anything out right now. But I guess that's a good thing because I have a lot of books at home that I'm supposed to be reading. But I've mainly gotten books for research purposes, so that's what I was trying to go for, trying to maybe renew these and then pick up some more, but that's okay, I'll get them again later. I want to read more nonfiction, and so why not use that for my research purposes. Thinking about making some cake. On our way home now. I got stuff to write out. I got my stories to work on. And then we're gonna make a cake. We're gonna bake a pretty cake. They got strawberry with buttercream frosting. Yep, buttercream frosting. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see them, but there are some big mushrooms right there. Yeah, they are big mushrooms. Big mushrooms. Painted my nails. Not the best, but it's a pretty color. It looks a little darker in real life. But yeah, painted my nails. Alright, and here is the strawberry cake. Alright, well, it has been a long day. At least to me, it has. My makeup's wearing off, but it's still kind of on there because I put a couple coats on. So it's actually like a green and like a purple. I know it looks kind of dark from here, but that is makeup. So I've decided to do a Veda for August. Normally it's vlogging every day in April for a lot of people, but I decided to do August because it's been a while since I've done or attempted to do a month-long vlog series. So some vlogs are gonna be longer than others, some are gonna be pretty short, so you're gonna get all kinds of things. So ending this vlog because I have to get it up onto YouTube and it's already past 7. Me and Nathaniel just watched Long Legs. I think if it would have stayed as just like a crying mystery thriller kind of thing, it would have been fine. I kind of felt this way when I watched Hereditary too, and I know a lot of people love that movie. I thought some aspects of it were okay. Maybe I'll watch it again one day. But it seems in movies, well, I've only watched these two now, that you have one plot and then something like supernatural or satanic, demonic or whatever seems kind of like a last minute plot point that they inserted. It's like they came up with that idea a little bit later to kind of like make it a little different. And if you took those plot points out, you still could have the same movie, really. It just would have went to like a slightly different direction, but most of the other thing dominates those movies. And then like the supernatural thing comes in, you know. That's just how I feel about it. They weren't terrible movies. I think they just focused on the wrong things. Or maybe they were just presented a certain way, and that's not how it actually was. But anyways, yeah. So look on Popcorn and Earbuds, because that's where our review will be. And so to catch you guys up with what's been going on, I am almost done with Jackalope Fangs, which is going to be the first book in a series called Tales from Shadow Oaks. I'm basically adding the last couple chapters, doing some editing. I have to go back, you know, make sure there's the right punctuation, make sure that I gave people descriptions, especially if I'm going to describe them later in the book, because sometimes you get an idea how a character looks much later on. I'm a person that can see things in my head, but I don't know how to describe it, because you're telling the story, so it's kind of like you're seeing the character like through the character's eyes, right? So it's almost like you're seeing things from the character's perspective, so you don't always think about how the character looks. At least that's for me. Like if you tell me and you describe a character, I can definitely see that. Like one of my favorite books, The Hunger Games, for example, that is told in a first person point of view. And when you read it, at least for people like me, you can envision what the character is seeing. But to like a couple of pages later, you don't know what the character looks like, right? But then you can picture it. And I have like a love-hate relationship with that kind of thing, because I love being able to read books and visualize it the way I do, but there's certain things I can't listen to or watch, or certain words I can't hear, because if they're gross to me, oh, that'll turn my stomach. So it does have its downsides. So I have been going through names and everything of characters, and plots and stuff of this fantasy book that I'm writing. And I've showed you guys this before. My characters are Gemini, so I got some like Gemini facts written down here. But also like there's Aquarius, Taurus. Originally it was just going to be two sisters who were Geminis, and there were certain things going on with the Geminis. But then I decided, what if they have two different powers? Like instead of just air power, they have power over water too, because of how, the time they were born and everything. And my main characters, I decided, I think the whole Gemini twin thing has been done a couple of times. Now, I thought up this idea like years ago now, part of the idea was helped by a friend. Well, they suggested Gemini. I wanted to write something with zodiac characters. They suggested Gemini. But I think the whole twin thing has been done because Geminis are twins. Kind of makes sense. So I decided, why not 4 sisters? Make them even more special. So far, the names I have settled on now for my 4 main characters are Ayala, Soika, June, and Iris. There's going to be other characters. I really like the names Thomason and Tamsin, so those will be in there. A few others. I was thinking about Estrella or Arania. I'm leaning more towards Arania. So it's going to be a mix of unique names and just more common names that you hear. The story is going to be set in a future United States. I think I'm just going to keep it in the United States, more towards the Midwest. That's where I'm living. That's what I know most about. But it's going to be like a fantasy setting. So I think this kind of like low urban fantasy kind of thing. It's going to be a mix of basically, you know, city life and dragons and, you know, tall buildings that are covered in vines and plants, and there's going to be fae and elemental magic. So I think it's going to be an interesting mix. So and I'm doing a lot of research. There's a lot more that I know I can put in here, but I was following a book that I was reading, so that's on Kemetic, like culture and mythology. Of course, you got Ma'at, which is divine order. And there's a little bit more about dynasties and stuff in here. The beginning of the book was more about pharaohs and dynasties and stuff before they got to the actual mythology. I have to get them back from the library. Of course, if you don't know, Kemet usually translates to black land or rich black soil, because they named the country off after how the land looked. So Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. Let's see. I have a lot of other research here. I am getting into Slavic mythology, not just for the story, but for my own spiritual path. I am looking into mainly the paths that are from my background and everything, but also others too, because I still am interested in like Greco-Roman gods and everything. The thing about Slavic mythology is there's not a lot that's well known because a lot of it wasn't preserved very well, and what we know, like unfortunately with some other cultures as well, comes from I think like Christian monks who, you know, probably weren't, you know, very happy about people having other beliefs. They weren't very pagan friendly a lot of the time. So there are debates on some gods, whether they actually existed in those cultures. But the thing about deities and stuff is I mean, I myself believe that there is a creator, but these names, no matter what culture you are from, are given by man, and man's interpretation of God, I guess you would say, or gods. Um, a lot of these stories were to explain certain natural things, storms, the sun, how plants grow and stuff. And to me, it makes sense that there is something spiritual within that, right? That there's a higher power. At least to me, it does. But I there's just no telling. I think with some things, whether certain things were worshipped or not. I don't think there's anything wrong if you look to some of these deities, because in my opinion, I know a lot of people don't always agree, I'm not a hard polytheist. I am an eclectic pagan. I am not a hard polytheist. I'm more towards the inclusive monotheistic, there's one creator, many names kind of thing. I'm sort of a mix between the idea of panentheism, God is everywhere, and outside of all that, like God is within the universe and exists beyond it. But there is one creator, one source, many various depictions of that across the world. So yeah, I think the idea of God can still evolve and have new names even now. So I don't think there's anything wrong if a person read about a deity and that connects with them, even if it's not 100% accurate. Because excuse me, almost had a burp there. There is debate on the existence of Chernobog and Belobog. Some say Chernobog was made up because Christians couldn't understand not having like an evil character, because there was a good God, it must be like bad. But then some say that Belobog was made up and Chernobog actually exists because they can't fathom the idea of there not being the good God. I have heard that Belobog and Chernobog are two sides of the same God, or that they're brothers. It varies. And again, you gotta remember, there are a few Slavic countries, many, I should say actually, and they all have different interpretations of things. Some may not even worship the same gods. So, yeah. There are certain pantheons where they expand over a few countries. But I'm definitely interested in gods like Mokush and Lada and Marzana. See, that's another thing too. There are some things that say Lada is the goddess of spring. I've heard that. I've also heard she's the goddess of love and beauty, kind of like an Aphrodite or Venus type. But then I also hear that Vesna is the goddess of spring, and her and Marzana are like two sides of the same thing, So it varies. I also heard people say there's not a lot of goddesses in the Slavic pantheon. But there's Mokush, there's Lada, there's Marzana, Devana, and again, some people say some of these were made up. I'm not totally sure, but I see a few female deities. But yeah, that's some of the research I had going on. Oh, I was also studying about Celtic mythology. So as my background, what I know that I definitely am from both my parents would be German, Polish, and Irish. So Germanic, Slavic, Celtic. Um, like I said, I'm studying stuff from my background, but also other things too. Now, the thing about Celtic deities and Celtic and Gaelic, and I think for Scottish it's Gaelic. I think same spelling but different pronunciation. Some of these names of both people and deities are not always pronounced the way we would in English, so it's taken me a little bit more time to remember certain things because I want to remember the correct pronunciations when I am doing things for both my book and my own spiritual path. But yeah, the Celtic deities are also very interesting too, and again, that covers a few countries itself. And because there are some deities that are Welsh, some that are Irish, Scottish, and so on. And I often wonder if I'm pronouncing any of these right, or if people are pronouncing these right, because, again, many of these names typically are not pronounced the way that we would in English, but the way I hear the deity names, they're usually pretty easy. Like the Morrigan, I'm not sure if that's actually how you pronounce her name, but she is a goddess of war and death. She usually appears as a crow. Now Bridget, I've heard Bridget, and then her name is actually supposed to pronounce like, I think either breed or bride is how it's supposed to be pronounced. And she's the triple goddess of poetry, healing, and smithcraft. Epona, I've heard, I think she was both a Celtic and a Roman goddess. I think. She's the goddess of fertility and horses. And there's research on the elements. I'm listening to a book on Celtic myth. It's called, I think it's called The Complete Book of Celtic Myth and Magic. And it goes over like the elements and stuff, so I'm writing down a little bit about the elements. I've also heard a lot of this when I was researching things about Wicca. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not Wiccan. There are some beliefs that resonated with me, but some of the things I can't get behind. So, both water and earth are elemental. No, sorry. Both water and earth are feminine elements in the elemental stuff. So, water is related to childbirth, emotional healing, transformation. Earth is related to the mother goddess, fertility, prosperity. Then I have to write down fire and sky. Now, typically, fire and sky are masculine elements. However, in some cultures, that is different. One I know for sure is Kemetic or Egyptian mythology. So, like I said, a lot of cultures see the sky as the father, the male figure, and the earth as the mother. Which, in some ways, I guess, made sense to me because things grow from the earth. We call it Mother Earth and everything. And I guess we usually see male figures as more protective. So I guess the sky thing would make sense, right? Like in Greek mythology, I think it's, yeah. So in Roman mythology, it's Uranus, like the planet. I think it's pronounced Uranus in Greek. I think that's the Greek version. And so he's the sky, and Gaia is the earth. And I think these were the primordial deities. And they gave birth to like the Titans, and then the Titans had like the Olympian gods. There's like literally a family tree with Greek mythology. Probably other mythology too, but that's one of the most well-known ones. They have like 3 generations of like godly family going on. So yeah, Gaia's earth, Uranus's sky. In Egypt, it was, I want to say her name is pronounced Nut or Nuit. It's usually spelled N-U-T like nut, but it's not nut. I think it's Nut. Nut is the sky. And I've heard it pronounced both Geb and Jeb. He is the earth. I need to do a lot more studying on Egyptian mythology. Because it's not that gods from like the Greek or Roman pantheon don't have only have one attribute, or they don't have more things to them, but it seems like Egyptian deities have a lot more things that they cover. So sometimes it can be hard to keep track, especially when you're first learning. But yeah, that's just an example of how it's different. Typically, when it comes to like the sun and the moon is seen as feminine. And again, a lot of this is taken from Greek mythology because, again, it is very popular, very well known. There are goddesses like Diana, she's actually she's a Roman goddess, but so Greco-Roman. Diana, Selene, Artemis. They're either moon goddesses or goddesses associated with the moon. And then you have like Helios and Apollo, which are the god of the sun and god associated with the sun. Again, male sun, female moon. And a lot of people believe that the moon basically usually was seen as feminine because it was seen to represent the cycles of women. And some even said that the moon looked like a pregnant woman. So there you go. But I think it's in Germanic mythology. Maybe Norse too. I know Norse is a branch off of Germanic mythology, that the moon is seen as male and the sun is seen as female. And I want to say the names are Sol and Mani or Mani, but I have not went too deep into Germanic mythology just yet, because I was mainly focusing on Celtic and then Slavic and like the Kemetic stuff. But I will eventually get to that. So, ending this vlog here, I'm going to show you what is essentially becoming, I guess, my Book of Shadows. I have one somewhere in storage, but it just says Book of Shadows and it's black. It's not as pretty as this. This I actually got from Walmart. And, it's holding up pretty decently. I've had it for a couple of years now. Maybe longer. So, yeah, there's that. The inside's pretty. nothing like really super personal in here. Like I know some people keep personal stuff, but I'm just keeping basic facts and I'm learning about deities and stuff right now. I have a smaller little book that I have information into that I might just keep for like travel purposes. I did write down the 13 goals of a witch. I did write down the religions and stuff that I'm interested in. So, Druidry, Celtic paganism, Slavic paganism, Norse and Germanic paganism, Chemeticism, Hellenic paganism. This is some information that I wrote about Nyx, who is the goddess of night. She's like the primordial embodiment of night. There are some facts about Aphrodite. I am getting more interested in learning about her. So there's not really anything much else in here. I'm just pretty much at the beginning. But yeah, isn't this pretty? I mean, for something that came from Walmart, I think this is really nice. Anyways, I'll let you guys go. I have to upload this. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me ramble. Bye.